Why you keep doing what you don't want to do, and whether this thing that you don't want to do is struggling, complaining, blaming, feeling frustrated, angry, whatever the things that you don't want to experience in your life, yet you keep experiencing it. In other words, you keep doing it in some way, right? Whether it's feeling stuck, indecision, whatever it is, I would like to invite you on this journey with me now to get curious about why you keep doing what you don't want to be doing. And this is something that I have worked through a lot in my own experience, and I want to give how I have done it. And I would like to invite you to do this work together. Hi, everyone. My name is Asela Manawa. I'm a life coach for transitioning humanitarians. And as I coach a lot of humanitarians on transitioning, right, a lot of different topics come up. And a lot of the topics around things that we don't want to experience in our lives, yet we keep doing it. And my guess oftentimes is because we haven't really asked ourselves, why do we keep doing what we actually don't want to experience in our own lives? So I was reflecting on common things that we do, and I would like to invite you to look behind the doors, so to say, as to asking yourself, reflecting with yourself as to why do you keep doing that you don't want to do. So let's start with something very simple, which is complaining. This is my favorite topic. In fact, when I transitioned out of the humanitarian sector, I started focusing on how I can help humanitarians stop complaining about their lives, about what's going on at work, and all of this. And then to realize, oh, they actually didn't want to stop complaining. Anyway, so I would like to look at this activity as complaining, right? Which probably many of us engage in so often in daily lives without even realizing. And the reason why I say that is because at some point I did my own complaint fasting, and I stopped complaining for a week, and I kept observing every time I wanted to complain, and then I was so shocked how often I was engaged in it. So I'd like to invite you all, if that is you, to ask, why do you do it? Right? Why do you complain? Now, if you look behind why you do that, you start looking at, okay, something you're not happy with, something you're not satisfied with. Okay, that's fair. We all experience that. But then instead of solving that directly, that problem, if it's solvable, or letting go of it if it's not solvable, if it's not within our control, what we often do is we go and engage with other people and complain about how bad it is and how this is not this thing, how this is not how it should be, and all of that, right? And while we may feel a temporary relief and maybe even bonding activity with other people, we then realize that at the end of the day, we are the one who are exhausted, we are the one who are not feeling good. And then if we keep doing that over time, it gets into a habit, and it just feels like we're building relationships not on the fulfilling, loving ways, but on how we all feel powerless about certain things. Because complaining is an activity that comes from feeling powerless about something, feeling unsatisfied about something, which is very possible that we can all experience. But unless we actually decide what we're going to do about it, what can we do about it? Is it within our control? Is it not within our control? And if we don't solve it, then we just keep perpetuating the feeling of powerlessness over time. And by us keep feeling powerless, what is it that we're really sending the message to ourselves? That we are someone who's not capable to solve, we're someone who's not capable to do something in this situation, we're someone who is just a victim of the situation. And then we start just seeing ourselves that way instead of seeing ourselves as powerful human beings who don't need to be a victim of any situation, circumstances, that we have the power to change and do something about it if we choose to. If we choose not to, then also not engage in it, right? So that's why we need to start looking at why we do what we do, and is that the activity we want to keep doing? And if that's not the case, then we need to start looking at why are we doing what we're doing, and what are we going to do instead of keep perpetuating the feeling that we don't want to experience, right? Now, blaming is another activity that I think many of us humanitarians engage in, whether it's blaming a colleague, blaming a supervisor, blaming the system, blaming others. I would like for you to also ask yourself, why do you do that? Like, what would be the purpose of you blaming? What would you like to achieve by blaming? Right? Whether it's blaming yourself or blaming others, what will be the purpose of doing it? I would like for you to really think about it. Because when I thought about it, this is what came up. When I was trying to blame myself or others or the system, which I used to do a lot, I used to be, I don't know, systemic blamer at some point, if there is a term like that, right? When I used to blame the system, like, of course, generalizing it, right? As you can see, that even by me saying the system, I'm generalizing it. I'm saying, okay, I'm blaming the bureaucracy, I'm blaming how things are, I'm blaming the humanitarian sector, I'm blaming this person, I'm blaming that person. I never ask myself, what is the purpose of me doing that? Right? So, what am I trying to achieve by blaming? I never asked myself that question. I asked myself that question only later after I left the sector. And then when I asked myself that question, okay, what am I trying to achieve by blaming, right? What am I trying to achieve by blaming that the bureaucracy is bad and I don't want to do it? Nothing, right? I mean, it would be one thing if I was blaming someone and then going and talking and solving it. That would be one thing, but I wasn't even doing that. So then I started realizing, okay, if I don't want to experience blaming in my own life, in my own human experience, then what is the purpose of me doing it? Okay, I'm not happy with something, I expected something and it didn't work. Then what am I going to do? Am I going to stay in that environment and keep doing it or keep blaming, or am I going to change, or am I going to leave that environment, right? The same goes for the financial crisis, and I think, like, I help my clients a lot in this difficulty of, we have a lot of reasons to be blaming the system for. I get it, right? I hear you, I feel you, and we have a lot of reasons why the system shouldn't be doing things the way that they did. Okay. Now, after having experienced all of that, after having been frustrated, having been disappointed, having been all of the emotions that we can possibly have about the system, what is now the purpose of us keep blaming? And I think that's a crucial question that I would like for you to answer or ask yourself and answer yourself. Because again, what happens when we blame, right? What happens when we keep blaming something, even though we're not then getting the outcome that we want to? Because by blaming, we're hoping somehow that we will get an answer probably, right? That's the only explanation I can find, is the reason we blame is we want some version of solution or some version of showing dissatisfaction. Okay, great, we have done that. Then what? Right? Then, if the situation is not solving or the situation is not going to favor us anyway, then what will be the purpose of us keep blaming? Because what is it that we are not, I think, aware of and understanding is by blaming, we are generating a lot more emotions that are harming us and stopping us from thinking clearly about where to go and how to move forward. Right? And that's the same thing that I think we like we know that to be true, but it feels almost like we can't help ourselves in some way, right? And if that is the case, ask yourself why, like what will be the outcome you would like to see after you have blamed everyone or the system and colleagues or whoever. What would you like the outcome to what would you like the outcome to be after you have blamed it? And blaming, is that the means to get to that outcome? And I have found in my experience, at least, that's never the means. Even if it feels so right to do in that moment, right? Even if it feels that's the thing to do in that moment. But what we are really saying by blaming is, I expected A, I didn't get the A, instead I got the B, and I'm very frustrated and disappointed that you didn't stick to the agreement that we had. That's what we're saying by blaming, right? But if the reality is we keep expecting A, we keep getting B, then what are we going to do about it? And my philosophy, at least, is unless I'm going and accusing the system officially in a tribunal, I'm not going to engage in that activity anymore. Because it's not healthy for my psyche, it's not healthy for anyone in my family, and it's not healthy for me moving forward to what I want to. So, therefore, what would be the purpose of me doing it? And most importantly, the part that I don't like about blaming is that I'm essentially saying, I am feeling so powerless currently that I have nothing else to do but to keep blaming you and keep showing all my frustrations. And I know that you can't do anything with it anyway, right? Because it's a system. What are they going to do? Then, therefore, I will be the one suffering in the end. And I don't like that. So, therefore, I have found an alternative to blaming is never blame. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. At this point, I have realized in my own life, I don't want to blame anyone or myself for anything. Like, even if I had a contractual agreement with someone, even if I had, I don't know, not only contractual, but I paid someone, and then even then things didn't deliver or things didn't go the way that I wanted to, I always have this feeling of, okay, I can see myself getting frustrated and disappointed in all of these things. I can see myself, right? But I also know that the outcome that I would like is not going to happen by me putting all my frustrations and disappointment to the other person. If I believed that would help, maybe I would have done it, but I just haven't seen any situation where they helped. So therefore, I immediately go to, okay, I can either go one of two ways. Either I outburst all of my frustrations, disappointments, and all of these things, and spend a lot of time suffering through this and talking to everyone about how bad it is and how bad I feel and all of this. Either I spend time and energy and all of my emotion doing that, or I recognize, okay, whatever the situation was, what is the outcome that I would like now to happen? And how do I get to that outcome while processing my emotions and all of this, but still go through to the side that I would like to, where I don't experience myself feeling powerless or feeling frustrated and disappointed to a point that I just keep perpetuating. I don't want to do that. I don't like myself experiencing those emotions, obviously. So therefore I immediately go to no blame strategy of, okay, I don't want to blame anyone or myself for what happened. I want to solve it if I can. If I can solve it, how am I going to do that? If I can't solve it, then what are my options? What do I decide? And I go to those decisions. And I was talking about this to my husband yesterday, and then he was saying that, but there are genuine situations where some colleagues or some team members don't do things, and you just can't help but blame. Okay, I understand. But let's say that even that was true. Let's say that someone messed it up. Let's say that someone just didn't do the things the way that you had all agreed to do. And then it was just so bad, the outcome. Now, let's say that me then going and blaming that colleague or that supervisor or that person for how they messed it up and how they shouldn't have done this. Why did they do this? Let's say that I do that, which I have done, by the way, in the past. The outcome still is not what I would like, right? The outcome still is not that the person magically reverses time and doesn't make the mistake. The outcome is the way it is. So then, me going and outbursting all of this is not going to help change the outcome, right? So, therefore, what am I going to do? Again, this took me a long time to get to this, but I feel like I'm now at a place where I immediately see myself to, okay, either I keep blaming and feeling emotions I don't want to, and possibly make things worse than I would have liked. So therefore, what is the other option? Not blaming and going to, okay, what are the things I could do? What are the things I want to discuss with this person? What are the things to course correct that? And that's it. So that's why I would like to invite you to really look at whatever the thing that you are blaming. Maybe you're blaming yourself actually as well, right? Which happens many times. Again, if you're blaming yourself, ask yourself, what is the purpose of you engaging in that activity? Because I feel like blaming, complaining, this type of actions become activity, meaning that we just like habitually keep coming back to and doing it, even though we feel horrible afterwards. Like, imagine, but we keep doing that anyway, right? So therefore, if you don't want to engage in that activity, what would be the purpose? If you don't see the purpose, then what would you like to do instead? And another thing that I don't like about blaming is that when I keep blaming the system, let's say, I keep blaming the system for how all the wrong they did, and how, according to the contract or according to my loyalty, according to my dedication, according to my sacrifices, they should have done X, Y, Z, and they didn't, right? If I keep blaming, I keep then somehow outsourcing the responsibility to them by saying, you messed up my life, now you take care of my life in some way. And I feel like I don't want to give a charge of my life to the system. The very institution who is doing wrong, let's say, according to me, right? I don't want to give charge of my life, my psychological, mental well being, my financial well being to the system who has already shown me that it's not capable of taking care of me, or it's not capable of rewarding my loyalty, or it's not capable of maybe seeing the dedication that I have made. And if it's not capable of doing it, then why would I keep somehow expecting it from them, right? It doesn't make sense. Or at least in my head, it doesn't make sense. So that's why I start immediately when I know, okay, I want to blame. I can see myself blaming. I know that, okay, I need to take a radical responsibility for how I have done all of those dedications, all of those loyalties, all of those amazing work that I believed we could do with the system. I have done it because that's how I want to be as a professional. That's who I want to be as a professional, right? I'm not doing it to be liked by the system. I'm not doing it to be patted on my back by the system and saying, oh, how good you are a person. I'm doing it because I believed in the work, right? I believed this impact that I wanted to contribute to, this support that I wanted to provide to the people who are suffering from the worst of human catastrophes, which is wars and conflict. I wanted to contribute that support in whichever way I wanted, and I wanted to do it in the most dedicated and loyal and committed way possibly I could, and I'm proud of it. And I feel grateful that I was able to do that. Now I don't need to expect the system to be somehow telling me, oh, poor you, you've done all of these things, and now you are all letting go, or you are suffering from this. I don't want the system to be doing any of that for me, right? So, therefore, me blaming the system does not make any sense anyway. At least this is how I would see it, right? So that's why what I would then do is, okay, I don't want to be sitting around and blaming and feeling all of these things that I don't like about myself or about the system. And I want to be grateful for all the dedication and loyalty and all the humanitarian work that I have done, I was able to do. And now I decide, what do I want to do instead, and how do I want to fill my mental and emotional capacity with to be moving forward to what I want to, because I can make the impact within or outside of the system anyway. I truly believe in that. So that's why I would like for you to look at, okay, if blaming was not really the activity that gave you the outcome you would like, then how else could you engage in processing emotions but also deciding what to do moving forward? And related to this activity, like to the complaining and blaming, there are, I think, other activities that we tend to do, is which is struggling, which I think is part of like blaming and complaining, where we struggle. But also struggling, the way that I have understood, is essentially keep experiencing emotions that we don't want to experience. And I was recently hearing someone even talk about how struggling has somehow become part of how we feel useful in the world. And when I heard this, I was so like amazed by how true this was as I was growing up, seeing my mom struggle and being like a hero in some way, and struggling to, I don't know, please my father, struggling to please children, struggling to sacrifice everything that she had in order to make everyone else feel good, and her bearing all the cost. And then later recognize or realizing that maybe that was her way of feeling useful in the family, or her way of, I don't know, fitting in the family. And then when I realized that, oh my god, I don't want to be struggling to feel useful in my own life, right? I don't know, the older you get, the more you realize, oh my God, I don't have much or many more years to live. And if I, let's say, actively live another 30 years, which would be until 70, I don't want to be proving my life, or, I don't know, seeing my existence by struggling. I want to be able to understand the purpose of why am I struggling if I'm struggling, right? So that's why, if that's the feeling you have, you feel like, okay, you are struggling the whole time, which I think is very common that I hear from humanitarians. If you feel like you're struggling, understanding what you label as struggle, right? How do you label, or what is your version of struggle, or how does it look like? And then understanding why, or what is the purpose of you struggling, And if you have the answer, something like, well, because I can't help it, because the situation is this, because the family is this, because of this and this and this, notice also how much you are allowing those circumstances, those family members impact you in a way that you just end up struggling, versus you deciding, is that how you want to interact with those system, with those family members, with those other people. Because the more we just give away our power to, oh, because of this thing I'm struggling, because of this thing I'm struggling, what we're really saying is, I am powerless, or I can't do anything because I'm somehow not in charge. And that's not true, right? And if you feel like you're not in charge, then the question I would like for you to ask is, why are you, or do you want to continue feeling that I'm not in charge? And if you don't want to feel in charge, if you don't want to feel like, okay, somehow life is out of your control, let's get into looking at how to get your own life into control, whatever that looks like for you. How to get yourself feeling in charge again. Because as long as we keep believing that others are somehow in charge of us, the system is in charge, the family members is in charge, or the situation is in charge, then we're just allowing everyone else govern over us. And that's where suffering happens most of the time. Now the question is, why are we allowing those around us to govern over us? And probably because we haven't learned how to not let them influence us so much that we feel like we're not in charge, right? We just haven't learned how to do that. And this was probably one of the main things that I learned as I didn't want to be a victim of my own life. I was like, okay, I don't want everyone else around me be in charge of me, because then my life sucks. I don't like my life when everyone else, like, if the system is in charge of me, if other people's judgments are in charge of me, and because of those things, I believe I can do X, Y, Z, then I just feel like I'm in a prison. I'm walking around, everything is great, except that mentally I'm in prison, and I don't want to be in prison. So then I learned, okay, apparently I have a power over who gets to influence me and who doesn't. Huh, that's a great thing to know, right? Apparently I am in charge, and I'm an autonomous human, and I have been autonomous human all along. I just didn't realize that I was. And maybe, like, on paper I was an autonomous human being, but in feeling wise it felt like I wasn't in charge. Somehow I was busy the whole time. My boss somehow had in charge over my schedule. And then I realized, wait, what if I actually go and talk to my boss and say, here are the things that I would like to do because it makes sense to do this way, and here are the things that I would like to do with you, and agreeing on that. That could be the start, right? To feel like you are in charge some of the time. And suffering really comes from this feeling that we're just at the effect of, or at the mercy of, everyone else or everything else that's happening around us. But they can only happen if we keep allowing those to influence us. And in order not to let them influence us, we need to recognize we have the power to decide, to perceive, to put our attention to solve in the way that serves us, or in the way that we find important to us. Other people, other judgments, other institutions can't influence us unless we agree to be influenced. And therefore we need to start realizing that whatever the activity that I mentioned above, whether it's complaining, whether it's blaming, whether it's struggling, suffering, whatever the activity that you observe yourself engaged in a lot, and that became like your major flavor of life, let's say, then you also need to see how that is impacting the quality of your life. You need to also see how that's impacting your health, excuse me, and how that's also impacting your relationships, probably. And oftentimes in the negative, right? And if we don't want that negative impact, then we need to start understanding why we keep doing things that we actually don't want to experience. And we really genuinely don't want to experience this anymore. We really don't want to experience complaining, blaming, struggling anymore. Then we need to understand why we do what we do. Because probably somewhere there we believe that's useful. Somewhere there we believe that's the only way we can do things. Somewhere we believe that we don't have any other choice. And therefore we put ourselves in this very powerless, very victim-y situation. And the more we feel victim of our own lives, of our own circumstances, the more we don't get to live the life we want to. And if anything that I can advocate for is this, that we always have, even though it may not feel like it today, but we always have the power to live the life we want to. Whether with the help of the universe, whether with the help of God, whether with the help of other people, you name it. But we have that power. Because if we are saying we don't have that power, we're not in charge, or we're powerless, then what we're really saying is we're not autonomous human beings. We don't have those amazing resources. We're denying, we're undermining ourselves. And I don't think that's what we want to. I think instead, many of us really want to recognize how powerful we humans are and how much we can change in our own lives, how much we can work on the impact we want to, how much we can feel our freedom to be living the life we want to. We have that power. And I would like for you to experience that power. And by experiencing it, we need to start being aware of how we're experiencing our lives daily. What are our emotions telling us? And what are we going to do about it to change? Okay, my dears, it was a bit longer than I expected, but I hope it was useful for you to reflect this together with me. And if you choose to work on this with me, please come coach with me in my group coaching. If you would like to do it on your own, amazing as well. Let me know if there is anything I can support you with.